Welcome, everybody, to Dead Talk Live. And tonight it is my honor to have our special guest, writer, director, producer, Aaron Fjellman. Aaron, thank you for being here. How you doing?
John, thanks so much for having me, and I'm doing really well. Doing really well. How are you?
I'm doing good. Now, Aaron, like I said, is the writer, director, and producer of his movie that came out last year called Caged. It is currently available on Stars. If you're not a Stars subscriber, little hint, hint, they do offer a 7-day free trial. Highly recommend you guys try it out and watch Caged. Now, Caged deals with the issue of solitary confinement in America's prisons and the effect that it has on the human brain, the psyche, or the emotional toll that it inflicts. So, Aaron, what inspired you to tell this story?
Um, well, a personal friend of our family, when I was growing up, a guy who started working for my dad in his 40s. He became a good personal friend of my father's, and he started working with my dad so late in life because he was getting out of prison. He went to jail when he was 18 and ended up getting out when he was 38.
Wow.
And he went in for buying stolen merchandise, wasn't a violent guy, ended up having to defend himself against, you know, people who were in gangs and, who were threatening his manhood. And he ended up committing murder in jail and really lost half of his life for it.
Yeah.
And 2 of the years that he was in there, of his 20-year stretch, he spent in solitary confinement. And I remember going to like baseball games in Los Angeles and sitting at Dodger Stadium and like having him tell me these weird stories that like, why are you telling me? I'm way too young to be hearing this story, and this is so not appropriate. But those stories, he was just a really colorful guy, a really amazing man, actually. And those stories stuck with me. So flash forward to, me being an adult age filmmaker, and, our family lost Larry a couple years before I embarked upon this. And I guess it was in mourning his death that I started to think about the stories he told me when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, my business partner and I were pursuing another film. It was a slasher horror film set in the world of heavy metal.
Okay.
Completely different side of what I was interested in. And so it was on the high end of low budget. We were trying to do a $3 million movie in Canada with tax credits and whatnot. And for whatever reason, the cast and the financing never aligned at the same time. And we were always trying to, everyone saying like, we like you guys, we want to work with you, but this, this is a risky proposition for somebody who's an unproven entity in feature film.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's a story that a lot of filmmakers hear.
Oh, yeah.
So we decided, well, let's pivot. And I was fully inspired. I mean, after 3 years of working on a movie that you haven't done, you're done with that movie.
Yeah.
At least for the time being. And so I was really inspired about this movie that I felt came from my childhood, came from this family friend. And so I called up a friend of mine, James Doc Mason, who I co-wrote the movie with,
Mm-hmm.
and we wrote Caged. And the script came together in like, I don't know, it was very quickly. I would say 3 to 4 months.
Wow.
And we had already raised some money with the other project. So we went back to our investors and said, all right, guys, what do you think of this? We've got this new idea. It's a micro budget feature. Would you be interested in, putting the money that you've put into this film and let us apply it to this new one, which costs a lot less money and everyone's a lot more likely to see a return?
Yeah.
They said, yeah, we love this. We love the way it came. We love how it's personal to you. And we love that it's small. But they also like the fact that because of the psychological aspect, because of the psychological deterioration that occurs in solitary confinement, that the walls of the cell weren't going to necessarily limit where we could go with the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So we set off to make Caged, and we from the time that we pivoted to production was literally 5 months.
Nice.
So on the heels of waiting 3 years on this other project that was just, slightly, I felt like we were slightly biting off more than we could chew.
And you know what? That just goes to show you that what seems like a lost opportunity actually opens the door to something even far greater with Caged.
Very true.
And what makes Cage such a great film, of course, the story, but you put together a really awesome cast in Eddie, Melora, Angela Sarafin, who was just recently in a movie called The House on the Bayou. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Yeah.
Tony Amendola, who's sort of like a legend, you know what I mean?
Absolutely, he's a legend.
So you wrote the film, you got the financing in place. Did you then move into casting the film?
Yes. We hired a casting director by the name of Karina Walters. She's awesome. She's fearless. She's young. She has great taste. And I feel like I have like a good knowledge of like up and coming actors in Hollywood from like the indies that I like go out of my way to make myself aware of.
Yeah.
And then I meet her and she's like, oh, she was in a commercial that aired in Japan in 2016. I got to beat this actress. She's going to be huge. And she turns out to be somebody amazing. So I was like in great hands.
Yeah.
So, it's a tricky thing because we were trying to make a very small budget film. For us, it was all about drilling down on a lead. And so we had some ideas, we made some lists. And then Karina actually suggested Eddie to me, and I was aware of him, but not from Blacklist, which was kind of his like most robust like role at the time.
That's where I know him from. And when I saw him in Caged, I was really excited.
Yeah, no, so I saw him in X-Men and small stuff, and I'd already done like Gone Baby Gone and stuff like that, and then Twilight also. So I watched his stuff from Blacklist, and I was like, wow, this guy's real deal. I mean, he's done some stuff like some other stuff that was like smaller, lower profile, like this movie called Pimp, and it was just like I have to say, his ability to modulate his performance and give you small, extremely subtle tweaks and variations upon a performance that he's doing is unlike any actor I've ever worked with before.
His intensity,
truly talented.
His intensity is on a whole other level when he's bringing it, and I think that's what makes it so special. Like in the part of the movie where he's in solitaire and he's looking at himself in the mirror, and the mirror is reflecting back his like alter ego talking back to him, and how he was flipping back and forth. That just goes to show you the level of intensity he brings to his work.
100%. I mean, and those moments were, for the most part, improvised. There were certain things, even we were trying to produce certain elements, even while we were on set, not knowing how exactly we were going to be able to afford, or if we'd be able to afford, or if we were going to have to change tact altogether and write new scenes. And the scenes in the mirror were some of those new scenes. We basically repurposed some dialogue that were kind of like it was somewhat of where we would get to like include some of like my message beats about Solitary, and to understand some of the statistical elements, and the kind of the world's perception of Solitary, why someone might think it's useful, who they might think would get targeted by this unfair form of punishment, culturally and whatnot. He was So for him, I would just call out something like prison industrial complex, and he would just go off,
Yeah.
you know. Uh, so it was really amazing to see him be creative in that way, and literally write moments in the script, but then also to collaborate with him on moments that were scripted, and to be able to really feel like you're holding a dial,
Yeah.
and you could see what 10 feels like, you could see what 1 feels like, and land on a 4 and just be like, wow, this is if you're working with someone who had less control, you wouldn't be able to do that. And
No.
I felt like having that at my disposal really led to us, because the movie so squarely rests on his shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
It was essential to be able to try to create an arc of him going from sane to insane.
To insane. Now the
Yeah.
dynamics between his character is Dr. Harlow Reed.
Right.
He's in jail for the murder of his wife.
Correct.
And while in solitary, he meets, of course, the officer in charge of the solitary unit, Officer Sachs.
Mhm.
Done beautifully by Melora. There was a moment between those two when she's transporting him in the elevator, and she tells him how she got the scar on her face and
Yeah.
one of her biggest regrets in life. Was that you trying, maybe to some degree, to get the audience to sort of see her point of view and sympathize with her?
I guess it was to a certain degree. I mean, she was very much a villain,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's important to know, maybe not sympathize, but at least understand where she's coming from.
Yeah.
And to make her a human being, she has to have something that we as an audience can understand and relate to, and saying, well, I may not agree with that, but at least that's like sound logic.
Yeah.
I could see how a person who is disfigured might think that way.
Yeah. Because you got to keep in mind, that's her job. At the end of the day, she goes home to, if she has any family or whatever, and you have to assume she's not the same person at home that she is while she's in the jail. Now, the Warden Perez, again, done brilliantly by Tony, he is the one person.
Wait, John, do you mind if I add something to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
The one thing I thought was that was tricky about it is that the movie is entirely shot from Eddie's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
So the only way we could show, to give the audience anything to sympathize on, was from something that happened in Eddie's presence.
Yeah.
And we could never show her having coffee or doing any of these other things like what she did in the break room, because the movie did not work if it wasn't from the point of view of the prisoner.
Absolutely, absolutely, and the whole movie is told from his point of view. He's in every scene, even the flashbacks. Now, the warden is a good guy. I mean, he's probably the only person in the prison who's on Dr. Reed's side and ultimately helps him. Did you struggle with that idea, with that character, on how to? Did you also want to make him a villain? Did you struggle with making him a voice of reason? Obviously you landed with the voice of reason, but did you struggle with that decision?
I'll say this: like, I knew going into the movie that when you're making a film, a prison film, you're in my mind, you're competing with Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
Like it's such a great film, you know what I mean? And we've seen that evil warden character.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, what is the fresh take that I'm going to offer a prison film? And to me, I wanted to create a simulation of what it feels like to be in solitary confinement.
Mm-hmm.
How spending time there will drive you insane, how spending more time will drive you even further. To create a sense of claustrophobia and a sense of just audio, a distortion of reality
Mm-hmm.
that at times was uncomfortable to participate in. I thought that that was my goal with the movie, a goal with the movie that kind of occurred in post.
Okay.
And I thought that this is something that I can make. This is something unique that I can bring to this genre.
Yeah, and the movie shows how Dr. Reed is losing his mind from a variety of different points of view. First, you have the hallucinations, the wall. He's talking to a prisoner that is supposedly in the next cell that's not there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like we talked about the reflections in the mirror, and you see this slow progression into insanity because of his time in solitary confinement. Now, if we jump to the end of the film,
Mm-hmm.
I want to say this without spoiling it, but I guess the best way to do that is the very end of the film before the credits roll. Is that reality or is that a hallucination?
I'll never tell.
So you're totally leaving it up to the viewer's own
I am.
interpretation.
I am.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard I've heard both. I've heard people react extremely strongly in both directions. And there's certain people who are convinced that, oh no, he's dead, you know. And then there's other people who are, you know, who I think it's like depends on like, are you a pessimistic person by nature? Are you an optimist? Optimists tend to like to think that he got out
Yeah.
and that he's, you know, forever changed by the situation, but that he's still alive and he's out. Um, Pessimists think that you know he's either dead or trapped
Completely
in
lost
solitary.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
completely lost all touch with reality. Now, Angela, she plays his wife in flashback scenes. And
Mm-hmm.
we get to see uh, different versions that we, as the audience, have to come to our own conclusion on what really happened. We see two alternate stories. One of him where he's not the killer and it was an accident that he got blamed for as a murder. And then we see him as he's slipping into insanity, a side visualized on the screen of him actually killing her. And again, we're left as viewers, and I love this about filmmaking, leaving it up to the audience to let them come to their own conclusion. Was that your take? That's what you wanted to do in
Yeah.
regards to the wife?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, like because you don't get to know Angela unless you're getting to know her through Eddie's point of view,
Mm-hmm.
because it's Eddie's imagination that's conjuring those images. Then Eddie's mental state at any given time when he's imagining that would influence what that imagery would be. You know, and then there's a moment we're building to a moment where he has to bow down to Officer Sachs.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, the question becomes, is he admitting to a crime that he's actually committed? Or is he saying, or is solitary so bad he's willing to take the rap for a crime and forego his appeal in order to get out?
And that's why the warden is really pushing him to sign that confession.
Mm-hmm.
That's just fascinating. Now you know,
And I
officer.
think I think like you know like as you spend time in this institution, as you spend time in this single room, like you're becoming a more violent man. And I think like there's something very interesting about like if you actually were in jail, would it be easier to accept that you are guilty and that being there is a just thing rather, or would the idea that you don't belong there drive you even more insane?
Exactly. And I forgot about this part. During his appeal process, his lawyer dumps him basically,
Yeah.
who is supposedly his friend from way back in middle school, because he has no more money left to pay the lawyers. And I'm
Mm.
like, damn, that's really messed up. So he's left having to work his appeal by himself. And of
Yeah.
course, he needs, basic writing utensils, which of course Officer Sachs makes it a living hell for him to get that. But he perseveres, he ends up cutting himself and even writing his appeal in blood. And it just goes to show all the extreme measures that people are forced to. And also the underhandedness of the prison system, not only regard to solitary confinement, but the warden just looking for a confession. And he's like, all you got to do is sign this piece of paper
Mm.
and you'll get out of solitary confinement. And man, he's there. He's got the pen in hand, ready to sign because it is so horrible.
Yeah.
But when he puts the pen down and says, "No, I did not do it," as an audience member, you stand up and you cheer for him because, yeah, he's willing to continue a life in living hell, but he's not going to admit to a crime he did not commit. And I thought
Yeah.
that was beautifully, beautifully told. Now, were you a part? Did you cut this film yourself? Sorry about that. Did you
Oh,
cut this film yourself?
I did. I co-edited the movie. I started off working with an editor, and again, because of us being a micro-budget movie, um, I felt like the movie needed more editing after our budget was up to work with the editor we had on board, and so I just kept going for for quite a while.
That's awesome. I mean, the final product, I would have put the budget in definitely in the seven-figure range, not the low micro budget that you're mentioning. So when did Stars get involved?
Well, Stars was we basically we distributed on VOD through Shout Factory,
Hmm.
and then they continued. For North America, they brought in Stars, and so we're available on Stars. We're available on Hulu Premium. We're on Amazon. I mean, obviously Amazon Prime
Hmm.
Video and Apple TV Plus as a rental, whatnot. Through Spectrum TV for free if you have the Star subscription.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they came on. We finished We finished post production in December of 2019. We were scheduled to play at our first film festival in March of 2020.
And then COVID
Like,
hit.
yeah, I mean, it literally hit on the weekend of our premiere,
Jeez.
like where like I in good conscience was like telling friends and family members, especially like older family members, like I know I'm so flattered and honored by the fact that you want to come to the premiere of this, but please don't.
Yeah.
I mean, we had probably still 50 diehard people who were just close friends, family, and the insanely talented crew members who I worked with
And they
who
wanted
wanted
to
to be
come out
there.
and support you.
And they wanted to, yeah, and showcase it and proudly showcase some of their handiwork as well. I mean,
Yeah.
like my DP was extremely proud of the film, and sound designers, film preparers,
So,
the
so
composer who
now
did our musical score.
so now that it's been you said March 21, sorry, 2020. Now that it's been almost 2 years, uh what kind of reaction are you getting from Hollywood right now? Now that you have Caged out, they see what you can do. Has anything changed? Have you gotten a lot more stuff that you're working on at the current moment?
Yeah, it was because of the pandemic. Um, I think people, after having spent so much time quarantined in their house, they
Hmm.
understood the effects of solitary confinement
Yeah.
a little bit more. But to be honest, we didn't have a huge marketing budget, so it's been slowly building. But I just got some data in the month of November. We were in the top 10 films on Stars,
Nice.
which was amazing and totally unexpected. And I think like Eddie's built a loyal fan base of
Hmm.
people who want to watch anything he's a part of.
Hmm.
And then when they did, they enjoyed it and they told a friend.
Exactly. Word of mouth.
So yeah, word of mouth has been it's been really awesome, and something I just wasn't expecting, but I was hoping for. Since then, I definitely say that I feel like after having made my first film that there's a lot of doors opening.
Awesome.
Yeah, which is a good thing. And I recently just optioned a script that I didn't write, which is for me to want to do something that I didn't personally write. It was because I came across something that I felt like was a real diamond in the rough. And is completely bonkers. It's a horror comedy, which is not what Cage was.
No.
Um,
Even though it
but
did have some horror type elements, there were moments there that you're questioning if this is paranormal or not.
oh yeah, for sure. No, I definitely consider it like psychological horror.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not comedic.
No.
Um, so, but this new one is completely batshit crazy, and I think that'll be the next thing I do. We're in the financing stages right now.
Awesome. Are
Um,
you? Do you consider yourself to be a big horror fan?
oh yeah, it's my genre.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. That is so cool. Aaron, you made a great movie. I mean, I loved it. I'm so glad I met you, and you. I heard of Cage through you, and I watched it, and I loved it. It's a great film. Our audience should definitely go check it out. It's available. If you're part of the Stars streaming package, you can get Stars on Amazon Prime, on Hulu, and whatnot, like Aaron said. Just one last question. Going forward, does your passion lie more with writing or directing?
Both. Um, I, I wouldn't exclude like I just mentioned, like I wouldn't exclude the opportunity to direct something that I didn't write, only if I feel like it's something I wouldn't write.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I'm currently writing something which is kind of in line with what Cage is.
Okay.
It's I would say it's like a Clockwork Orange meets Lawnmower Man.
Okay. That's interesting. That
Yeah,
definitely sounds interesting. We'll be
yeah,
definitely on the lookout for that one. Aaron,
yeah.
thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your thoughts behind Caged. Again, guys, watch it if you haven't. I want to thank our entire audience who tuned in live and those who will be watching this later on. The movie again is called Caged, available on Stars. Thank you to the writer, director, producer Aaron Fjellman who came on here and shared the story behind the inspiration for the film. Any final thoughts you want to share before we go?
Just that me and my entire team are really grateful to be on here, and thanks so much for showing us the love to help get the word out. We really appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Anyway, guys, stay safe. On behalf of Aaron and myself, stay walking. Bye bye.
Better, John. Thanks.